Economic power is one of the 5 types of power in our course, and it relates to Area of Study 2, Power in Southeast Asia. In particular, states and global actors possess different amounts of power and use this power in different ways. In particular, states are interested in achieving their national interest. One way of looking at power is an economic power is to define it as levels of foreign direct investment, trade, economic growth, and exploitable resources. So it's concerned both with the wealth of the state and the ability of the state to generate future wealth. Economic power can also be conceived of in terms of the discussions and agreements between states. So as they seek to fulfill their national interests, they might use a trade agreement or a free trade agreement to improve their economic position. This graph is one example of Indonesia's economic power. It shows their GDP growth over the past 40 years. And we can see from the year 2000 onwards, Indonesia has experienced enormous economic growth. So this economic growth is a symbol or an example of their economic power. Here we have another example of potential economic power. This graph shows us the foreign direct investment coming into Indonesia. So these are states and other global actors spending money investing in Indonesia. And we can see that since 2000, the amount of money being invested has been increasing, thus improving the GDP and improving the economic power of Indonesia in our region. So here are some of the examples of economic power that Indonesia has. Firstly, levels of foreign direct investment can increase economic power. We saw the graph. We also know that 38 Australian companies have invested in over 120 mines in Indonesia. Trade agreements represent economic power. So the free trade agreement with ASEAN consists of removing tariffs, quotas and subsidies so that the states in the region can have access to cheaper goods and services, thus improving trade and improving relations between states. Economic growth is a sign of economic power, and we saw the earlier graph showing us GDP growth. And lastly, exploitable resources. With Indonesia, we know they have the Grasberg mine in West Papua. This is the largest gold mine in the world and the third largest copper mine in the world. And this is symbolic of many of the resources that Indonesia has, which allow them to maximize their growth and the economic power that they can then use.